All right. We have been working on equivalent fractions. Somebody explain to me what an equivalent fraction is. Angel?
Equal.
Right, okay, they are fractions that are equal. What do I mean by equal? What do I mean by equal, Chloe?
The same.
Can you explain that a little more?
I don't know how to explain it.
Okay, so are these fractions equivalent? No, we don't add. We multiply. We multiply. All right. So are these fractions equivalent? Yes. So you're telling me that these fractions are the same, but they look different. What do you mean by the same? What do you mean by the same, Helena?
So 1 times 2 equals 2, and 6 times 3.
All right, let's go back a little bit. What is a fraction? Cody, what is a fraction? No, that's how to find an equivalent fraction, but you guys are not able to explain to me why these fractions, what I mean by same, and so we're going to go back to what is a fraction. What is a fraction? Elena? It's not a trick question. This is a fraction, yes? So what is this number? What does this mean?
1/3.
The whole.
The whole fraction. The fraction. A fraction tells me what? Okay, let's go back even further. This is a number. What does this number tell me? What is that? Yeah, it tells me 3, but what does that mean?
You could multiply with it. The whole is divided in 2.
No. This is just a number. This is not a fraction. This is a number. This is a whole number. What does this number mean? That I have what? 3 of something. Maybe 3 circles, maybe 3 apples, but I have 3 of something, right? That's what a number is. That's what a digit is. That's what a whole number is. So going back to a fraction, what is a fraction? Jenny?
It's a number that
Okay, it's a part of something. Cody, what is a fraction? It's a part of something. What is a fraction?
it's a part of something.
It's a number that represents a part of something. And the bottom number in the fraction, that's called the denominator. The bottom number tells me what does the bottom number tell me in the fraction?
That's the denominator.
How many parts the whole is divided into. So what do I know about denominators? What happens, the bigger the denominator gets, what happens?
It gets smaller.
The bigger the piece.
The bigger the denominator gets, what happens? The smaller the pieces get. Because I am taking my whole and I'm dividing it into more pieces, and the more pieces that I have to divide my whole into, the smaller those pieces get. What does the numerator tell me?
How many are
how many parts are shaded or how many parts I'm using. Yes, how many parts are shaded. So back to my original question. When you tell me that equivalent fractions are the same, what are you telling me? Because they're not, the numerators and the denominators are different. So what do you mean by the same?
They are equivalent, teacher.
If I gave you a choice between 1/3 of a pizza and 2/6 of a pizza, which would you choose?
1/3. No, 2/6. 1/3 because it's only gonna be 1/3. You need 2 pieces.
Does it matter which one you choose? Why doesn't it matter which one you choose?
You can split it into one piece.
It's the same size piece of the pizza, right?
Split it.
Remember? Thirds are a little bit hard, but... Okay, so this is not quite thirds. I realize that. But if I have 1/3, okay, that's 1/3. Now, if I have 2/6, it's the same size of the pizza.
All you gotta do is split it into one.
It's just more pieces. But it's the same amount of the pizza. So when I say equivalent fractions are the same, that means that they represent the same part of the whole. That the amount of the whole that represents is the same. Now, how do I generate equivalent fractions? How do I make an equivalent fraction? If I have a fraction, how will I make an equivalent fraction? 2. Not yet. How do I generate equivalent fractions? How, Zanaya? By the same number. Okay, so I'm going to choose a number. Okay, somebody choose a number for me. Jaden? All right, I'm going to choose 2. I'm going to multiply the numerator times 2 and the denominator times 2. 2 times 2 is 4. 8 times 2 is 16. All right, so if I multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number, I will get an equivalent fraction. Now, this rule also applies for division. If I divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number, I get an equivalent fraction. So if I divide the numerator by 4 and I divide the denominator by 4, what will I get? 4 divided by 4 is 1. 16 divided by 4 is 4. 1/4 and 4/16 and 2/8 are all equivalent fractions. They all represent the same amount as the whole. And I can think about it like this. Division is the opposite of multiplication, right? So just like when I think about division, sometimes I think about the opposite of a multiplication problem. When I am doing equivalent fractions, I can multiply by the same numerator and denominator, or I can divide by the same numerator and the denominator, because it gets me to the same place. So as long as I'm using the same numerator and the denominator, I can multiply or divide. Now, when I am dividing the fractions, we call that simplifying the fraction. That means making the numbers smaller. So when I am dividing by the same numerator and the denominator, I am simplifying the fractions. And when I get to the point where I can't divide anymore, that's called the simplest form. So if you're asked to simplify a fraction, what are you going to be doing? You're going to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. All right. Okay, write this number on your paper. Yes. No. All right, so write 6/10 on your paper. I haven't given you a page yet. Oh, you can. That's fine. Just write 6/10 on your paper. Now, here is where factors come in handy, because I can look at the factors of 6 and the factors of 10. But what is a number that I can divide both 6 and 10 by evenly? 2. All right. So, yes.
So, is this the denominator be like over 2?
What are you asking?
Can the denominator be over 10, like 20, 40?
Could I have a...
The denominator is 10, could it be like higher number?
It could be. But here's the thing. I'm dealing this. So this is just to practice simplifying fractions, to make them smaller by dividing, to find equivalent fractions by dividing. That's what we're doing today. We're finding equivalent fractions by dividing. The math term for that is simplifying. We're simplifying fractions, which means we are finding equivalent fractions by dividing. So I'm going to divide both 6 and 10 by 2. I have to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. All right, 6 divided by 2 is 3. 10 divided by 2? 5. All right. Is there any other number that I can divide both 3 and 5 by? 3 and 5 are both prime numbers, isn't it? So this is simplest form. So I have simplified 6/10 to 3/5. Are 3/5 and 6/10 equivalent fractions? Why, Jeremiah? Okay, where are you confused? Okay, let's go with this. Do you understand that if I divide a fraction by the same number, the numerator and the denominator by the same number, I get an equivalent fraction? Yes? Okay. Are you confused about why I chose 2? Okay. The reason I chose 2 is because 2 is a factor of 6 and 2 is a factor of 10. So I can multiply, because that's how, when I'm going to divide, I want to divide by a factor, right? I want a number that 2 times, or a number times, 2 times a number is 6, or 2 times that number is 10. So I want a number that divides evenly, so I don't have any remainders. And those are the factors. So this is where knowing our factors comes in. Okay, I know that the factors of 6 are 1, 6, 2, and 3. The factors of 10 are 1, 2, 5, and 10. So I chose a common factor. Jaslyn. Put our head up, please. Okay? Now, my next question is 3/5 and 6/10. Jeremiah, are those equivalent fractions? Okay? What does that mean? It's not half of 6/10. I'm touching everything but. All right, so here are 3/5. Right? Yes? So there's 3/5. And then here is 6/10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Are those equivalent fractions? What makes them equivalent fractions? They're the same size part as the whole of the whole. So Jeremiah, what makes these equivalent fractions? They're the same size part of the whole. Okay? So that's what I'm asking. I'm asking, are they equivalent? Well, yes. If I multiply and I divide by the same numerator and the denominator, then I get an equivalent fraction. What do I call it when I am dividing by the same numerator and denominator? When I am dividing by the same numerator and denominator, I call that say it loud. What do you call it? Yeah. Why do you think we call it simplifying? Because I'm making my numbers smaller. Because smaller numbers are simpler to work with. So I'm simplifying it. All right. So write that on your paper. All right, Cody, is there a number that I can divide both 6 and 12 by? Well, I don't want to do 2/4 because I have to divide it by the same numerator and the same denominator. So tell me a number that I can divide. So is there a number that I can multiply other numbers by that I use? Is there a factor of 6 and 12 that are the same? Okay, tell me the factors of 6. What numbers can I multiply together to get 6? I start with 1 times 6, right? Okay. Cody, give me the next one. Can I multiply 2 times anything to get 6? 2 times? Two times 4 is 8. So I count my 2's. 2 times 3. All right. So I have 1 times 6 and 2 times 3. All right. What numbers can I multiply together to get to 12? Jeremiah, 1 times 12. 2 times 6. And 3 times what? 4. Okay. Now, if I want to simplify this fraction, I can choose any common factor. If I want it in simplest form, I choose the greatest common factor. But I can do this in steps. So give me a number that I can divide both 6 and 12 by, Cody. Say it again. I can only do one because I have to divide both the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So which do you want to do, 3 or 4? Well, can I divide 6 by 4 and get a whole number? So let's choose 3. Okay, so which number do I want? 3. So I'm gonna divide the top number by 3 and the bottom number by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 12 divided by 3 is 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay? Now I have 2/4. Is 2/4 equivalent to 6/12? Charlie, is 2/4 equivalent to 6/12? Yes, it is. Okay, can I divide 2 and 4 by any numbers that are the same? Janira? What is it? What can I divide both 2 and 4 by? Well, I can't divide 2 by 4. Try again. What are the factors of 2? No, those are multiples. Remember, the factors are the numbers that I multiply to get. So, what are the factors of 2? What do I multiply together to get to 2? 1 times 2, right? Okay? So those are the factors of 2. What are the factors of 4? That's a multiple. What do I multiply together to get to 4? Start with 1. 1 times 4. Okay? And then what else? There's one more. What do I multiply? Okay, then go to the next number. So I did 1. What about 2? Can I multiply 2 by something to get to 4? 2 times? not a trick question. You know the answer. 2 times what equals 4? Well, count by twos. 2, 4. So 2 times 2 equals 4. Huh? All right. So what am I going to divide both the top and the bottom by?
5.
What number is a factor of both of these numbers?
8.
2. 2 is a factor of both of these numbers. So I'm going to divide the top number and the bottom number. So 2 divided by 2 is 1. 4 divided by 2 is 2. Is 1/2 equivalent to 6/12? Yes, it is. What do I mean by equivalent? Same size part of the whole. All right, here's a way to check my answer. If I have 6/12 and 1/2. Remember that I can check to see if fractions are equivalent by multiplying. We call that cross multiplying because I'm going across. So 2 times 6 is 12, and 12 times 1 is 12. If I get the same number, then they are equivalent. I call it butterfly. It looks like a butterfly. You can call it a butterfly. You can call it cross multiply, as long as you know what to do, and as long as you recognize that if you're asked about it, that's what you're doing. Can you put the lid on? And let's not do risky things with liquids. Okay. All right, open your math books to page 237. What? You're on page 237. Jeremiah, will you sit up? 237. All right. So this is what I need you to understand. Okay? So I don't want to overcomplicate it. Okay. Understanding number 1. Equivalent fractions represent the same part of the whole. Okay, it's the same size piece of pizza. An equivalent fraction is the same part of the whole. What is an equivalent fraction? Thank you, Janira. Everybody else join me now. What is an equivalent fraction?
The same number.
The same size part of a whole. What is an equivalent fraction?
The same size of the whole number.
The same size part of the whole. It's the same size piece. Okay, it's the same size piece. That's the first thing that we need to understand in our brains. Okay, that an equivalent fraction is the same size piece. All right, thumbs up or thumbs down. I get it. I don't get it. So an equivalent fraction is the same size piece. Now, remember when we first started with equivalent fractions, to help you guys picture it, we took our piece of paper, right, and we divided it in half, and no, you're not folding paper right now. And we shaded 1/2, and we said this was 1/2, right? And then we divided it in half again. We folded it again. And now we had fourths, and our shaded part was 2/4, but it was the same size, right? Okay? So when you're thinking of equivalent fractions, think about that piece of paper and how we folded it, and we got down to 16ths, didn't we?
We got down to 30.
We got down to 32nds. And that when we kept getting different numbers of pieces, but the same amount of the paper was always shaded. So those are all equivalent fractions, and that's what an equivalent fraction is. It's two fractions that represent the same size part of the whole. Okay, so that's the first thing we have to understand is equivalent fractions. Now, the second thing we understand is how to get an equivalent fraction. I get an equivalent fraction by multiplying or dividing the numerator and the denominator by the same number. I get an equivalent fraction by multiplying or dividing the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So what's important to remember there? That I'm using what operations?
The denominator and the...
Operations are addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. What operations do I use to get equivalent fractions?
Adding, subtracting, multiplication.
No, those are all the operations. I only use two of them to get Angel. To get equivalent fractions, I use multiplication and division. And when I multiply and divide, it always has to be the same number. I can't divide the numerator by one number or the denominator by another number. It's always got to be the same. Think about that numerator and the denominator like two toddlers. You have to give them exactly the same thing. If you do the same thing to them, they're okay. But if you do something different to one than you did to the other, they are not happy. It changes everything. So you multiply or you divide by the same number. So that's equivalent fractions. Okay, so that's number 2 that I have to know. So number 1 is I have to understand that equivalent fractions are the same part of the whole. So equivalent fractions are?
The same part of the whole.
Okay. How do I get an equivalent fraction? Multiply or divide by the same number. I got to multiply the numerator and the denominator by the same number. I've got to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So I'm multiplying and dividing by the same number. Okay, that's number 2. That's important to know. Number 3. When I am dividing to find equivalent fractions, what's the fancy math term? I
can remember. I know, but I can't remember.
am simplifying the fraction. So when I am dividing to find equivalent fractions, what am I doing? I am
Simplifying.
What am I doing?
Simplifying.
So when I am dividing to find equivalent fractions, I'm
Simplifying.
simplifying the fractions. I'm making the numbers smaller.
Simplifying.
Why do I want to make the numbers smaller?
Because we want to simplify.
Because I'm simplifying it. Smaller numbers are just easier to work with. So when I am dividing to find equivalent fractions, I call that simplifying fractions. Why am I drilling this into your head? Well, because here's the deal. Okay? I can talk about finding equivalent fractions by dividing. And we can know how to do that. But when you get to a test like iReady or like the ACAP, they're not going to say find an equivalent fraction by dividing. They're going to say simplify the fraction. And even if you know how to find the equivalent fraction by dividing, if you've never heard it called simplifying fractions before, then you think you don't know what you're doing. And you do. Okay? So that's why it's important to use the math terms, to practice the math terms and to learn the math terms, because that's what it's going to be called as you progress. You know, in 5th grade, you'll be told to put your answer in the simplest form. Well, that means you have to simplify the fraction. And when I simplify a fraction, I am just doing what? Sanaya? Yes, and how do I make it smaller? I am simplifying, but when I'm simplifying a fraction, what am I doing?
Dividing and multiplying.
Jillian, what am I doing? I am dividing to find an equivalent fraction. All right, I'm dividing to find an equivalent fraction. It has to be an equivalent fraction, because if it's not an equivalent fraction, I've just made up a new number. And I have to keep my numbers the same. But I'm dividing to find an equivalent fraction. So let's practice some. Let's practice some simplifying. I'm going to go ahead and turn off. Well, I keep it running for a little bit longer. All right, it'll just be a long video today. All right, so we did 6/12 already. Look at number 3. And let's do 2/10. All right, I want to simplify 2/10. Jeremiah, please tell me what simplify means. Not right now. But you can tell me what simplify means. Charlie, will you look in the bucket and see if there's a pencil that he can use? Okay. Also got this. Here. There you go. All right, but Jeremiah, tell me what simplify means. If I'm simplifying a fraction, what am I doing? If I am simplifying the fraction, what am I doing? Okay, keep going with that. You're on the right track. Just give me more. No. Stick with divide. Simplifying is only dividing. Yes, and when I do that, I will get an equivalent fraction. There you go. I was a little nervous there, but you had it all. You just trying to word it right. Okay, but you have it. So I am going to divide these two numbers by this. I'm going to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. So I'm going to simplify this fraction. Jeremiah, will you give me a number to divide both of these numbers by? Can I divide 2 by 5? Can I divide 2 by 6? What can I divide 2 by?
4.
I can divide it by 1 or I can divide it by 2. So what should I choose? 2. All right, let's divide the numerator by 2 and let's divide the denominator by 2. All right, 2 divided by 2 is 1, and 10 divided by 2 is 5. So if I simplify 2/10, what do I get? 1/5. Is 1/5 equivalent to 2/10? Should I check? I can check. So 2/10 is equivalent to 1/5. Let's build my little butterfly. 5 times 2? 10. 10 times 1? 10. Are they equivalent? They are, so 1/5 is my answer. All right, I want to simplify 6/8. I want to simplify 6/8. So if I am going to simplify 6/8, I'm trying to think if there's anybody. Jaden, what am I going to do if I'm going to simplify 6/8? Okay, I'm going to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. Jaden, which number should I divide the numerator and the denominator by? It's a good start. So let's do 2. 2 is a really good, especially if you've got 2 even numbers. Even if it's not the final thing you divide it by, you can always go by 2s. All right, so 6 divided by 2 is? 6 divided by 2 is? 6 divided by 2. 2 times what number is? There we go. And 8 divided by 2 is? 4. Right? Is 3/4 equivalent to 6/8? It is. So when I simplify 6/8, I get 3/4. All right, let's do one more. 4/6. Charlie, I have not heard from you very much today. So I want to simplify 4/6. Charlie, what am I going to do if I'm simplifying 4/6? Good, I'm going to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number. Will you please give me a number to divide the numerator and the denominator by? If I do 4 divided by 3, what do I get? I get a remainder, don't I? Okay, so what's another number that I can divide both of those evenly? Okay. All right, 4 divided by 2 is 2, and 6 divided by 2 is 3. So 2/3 is equivalent to 4/6. 2/3 is the simplified fraction. Because when I simplify a fraction, I'm finding an equivalent fraction by dividing. You can write the answer on the blue line, but I've just been working it up there. You can, to double check. You do 4/6 and 2/3, yes. All right.